welcome everybody to our Tichon graduation and end of year celebration for all of our 7th through 12th graders. This Sunday, we gathered with our kindergarten through 6th grade children and families to celebrate the holiday of Shavuot and our last day of classes. And I brought two different texts. Both of them talk about Revelation, the experience of the Israelites standing in the presence of God at Mount Sinai. The biblical text presents an image of an overpoweringly loud and terrifying experience of Revelation. Mount Sinai, Har Sinai, was all in smoke, for God had come down upon it in fire. The smoke rose like the smoke of an oven, and the whole mountain trembled violently. Vayehi kol hashofar holech v'chazek me'od. The blare of the shofar grew louder and louder. As Moses spoke, God answered him in thunder. The second text is from the Midrash, the collection of narrative interpretations by the rabbis to explain or fill in the gaps, the questions and the contradictions that arise in the text. Rabbi Abahu said, "When the Holy One gave the Torah, no bird screeched, no fowl flew, no ox bellowed, none of the angels flapped a wing, nor did they chant, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. The sea did not roar, and none of the creatures uttered a sound. Throughout the entire world, there was only a deafening silence as God's voice was heard, speaking, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, I am the Lord your God." If this were a text class, or if it were still Shavuot, I'd ask you why you think the rabbis offered this alternative to the Torah text. Why did they take a text that was all fear and trembling, and thunder and smoke and noise, and offer a completely different version, that of utter stillness and silence? But for now, I just want to focus on the amazing tradition that we have of both Torah and Midrash. The Torah, our laws, our traditions, our stories, what we pass down and teach from generation to generation. The set text that we return to in the same words and the same tunes every week, every year. Reading the same text at the same time every year, like a mantra. Midrash, on the other hand, is a radical way, really radical way, of wrestling with the Torah. The fact that our rabbis from the first centuries of the Common Era were able to ask truly daring questions, point out inconsistencies, and bring forward major theological questions from Torah through this process is an incredible legacy of creativity and even chutzpah. The word midrash comes from the word darash, lidrosh, to seek, to search, to demand. All of us follow in the tradition of the rabbis. When we take the texts of our traditions, the texts of our stories, the texts of our lives, our Torah, and seek greater meaning from them. Voice our doubts and our confusion and our skepticism, and demand ways to bridge those texts with who we are and the world that we live in. In our Tichon program, in our 7th through 12th grade program, we are really fortunate to have students and teachers who engage with both the Torah and the Midrash of Judaism. Torah is the history and the politics and the values and the holidays that we focus on, and Midrash is the way that we wrestle in every class to make these topics our own. Tonight, you will see our 7th graders who have learned Torah with and from the inspiring elders of our congregation through music and art and baking and trust games and have discovered what it means to be true community. You will see from our 8th graders whose mission it was to throw away everything they learned in Hebrew school in order to take a fresh look at the big ideas of Judaism. What does a minyan mean? Who are the people that stand up and support us? And for whom are we a minyan in our lives? What is prayer really? And how do we say what we need in our lives? What do we really hear when we say the Shema? You will hear from our 9th and 10th graders who search for similarities and distinctions between Judaism and Christianity and Islam, and who sorted out the strands of Judaism to understand the roots and the divisions between our Jewish denominations. You will hear from our 11th graders who examined the history of Israel and our relationship to it as American Jews. And you will hear from our 12th graders who questioned and searched for meaning with Rabbi Kozak and more as they prepare to launch to a whole new chapter of their lives. The Torah is our blueprint, and the Midrash is what allows us to be fully Israel, fully wrestling with God and ourselves, and to come out with a blessing. The Torah tells us that all of the Israelites were at Sinai. The Midrash expands on that and says, every Jewish person, past and present, every Jewish person in every generation was standing at Sinai to hear God's words. So perhaps some of us hear through thunder and through smoke, and some of us hear through silence and stillness. What I know is that every one of our students who are here in Tichon with us, who prioritize their Jewish learning and their Jewish community in addition to and beyond all of the other school and extracurricular activities that they're involved in, are gaining the blessing of that wrestling. Thank you for being here tonight to witness the Torah and the Midrash and the blessings of all of our teens. I'm going to start with our 7th grade Menches and Mavens program. I'm going to ask Rabbi Eve Posen to come up and introduce the presentation that the 7th graders have prepared.
Hello. This past year, I had the very fortunate experience of being a part of our Menches and Mavens program, where we paired 7th graders with mavens of all ages in our community to build relationships. See what it's like on either side, from the 7th grade side, from the maven side. What's it like to be a member of our community? And during the year, we did a lot of different things. We had a snowball fight, where we wrote information about ourselves on papers, crumbled them up and threw them at each other, and then picked them up to open them to find out whose name was on there. We crossed a swamp together in team building exercises. We made friendship bracelets for one another. We crossed around each other in other team building exercises. We made hamantashen and other tasty desserts. We observed Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaShoah together to remember those who gave their lives, those whose lives were lost for being Jewish. In the words of our teens, in my community, in my mind. We built community together through these experiences. And so you have seen outside the frames that each group made for the other. They didn't know they were making gifts for the other. The teens had no idea that their mavens were making a gift for them, and the mavens, I hope, had no idea that their menches were making a gift for them. They wrote poems. They got to know each other. We built community. There were invitations to B'nai Mitzvah. It's what we strive for as a congregation. The idea that we can stand together, and whether you're 3 years old or 13 years old or 83 years old, we have something to teach each other. We can support each other tolerate each other, learn from each other, and grow together. And that's what we did this year with our 7th grade. So I want to invite up our Menches, because our Menches wrote a song for our Mavens to tell them about our year together. So my 7th graders, come up. I'm not going to sing this myself into the microphone. Come on up.
because it's a required program. Our Mavens are here entirely out of the goodness in their hearts and have connected with these 7th graders, and it's been an incredibly beautiful thing to see over this year. And as you see, a lot of amazing relationships have developed, but I just want to wholeheartedly thank our Mavens, who really are exactly the human beings in our congregation that we all want our young people to connect to. So thank you very much. Introduction for the next group is, and now for something completely different. And I'd like to invite Brian Rohr and Ilana Jaffe to come up and introduce the 8th grade program, which is called Your Bar Mitzvah, Now What? You'll have your chance. Hold on.
No, not yet. Hi everyone, I'm Brian, and we taught the 8th grade class this year. Now, so for the 8th grade class, You know, in 7th grade, it was all about the Mavens and Mentions. It was also all about going through the B'nai Mitzvah process and all. And now, in 8th grade, we have the class that was entitled, So You're a Bar Bat Mitzvah, Now What? Right? So what does that mean? You're a Bar Bat Mitzvah, now what? And what we did, and what we strived to do, what we attempted, was to do a more kind of ground-up kind of learning. Meaning rather than top-down, rather than this is information you need to learn, memorize this, or anything like that. It was about introducing ideas, introducing concepts, really trying to help them to learn how to think for themselves in the Jewish context. Now that you're an adult, Jewishly, you have more choice, and you have more responsibility, and you can make decisions for yourself. And so what does that mean? How do you do that? What are even the concepts and ideas? So here, these are a few of the concepts that we introduced.
Yeah, so we talked about being Jewish in a not-so-Jewish world. What does Torah have to do with me? We looked at weekly Torah portions and really asked ourselves, why does this matter? What does it have to do with me? We had a cool art project where we actually constructed our own version of Pharaoh's hardened heart from the Exodus story. We also talked about the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov, evil inclination and good inclination. Are people born good? We also talked about things like Judaism and feminism. So just all sorts of topics to get them to just think for themselves. It's their ideas now, not our ideas.
And so, with that, at the end of the year, just like all the classes, there was an invitation to create an end-of-the-year project.
I'd like to call up Candace Rothstein and the 9th grade class to present on their comparative Judaism course this year.
Hello. So our 9th graders have been learning all about the different denominations of Judaism this year. And we talked about what we wanted to do for a final presentation, and we thought we would do an art project. So Aliyah is going to tell us all about it, but basically the key thing to note is that the colors represent truth and how the different denominations view truth. So without further ado, Aliyah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, as you already heard, my name is Adi, and I guess I'm the spokesperson for the 9th grade class. That's how that works? Well, here we go. So, this year, we learned about the differences between the Jewish denomination. Wow. Between.
We know what you mean.
Let's read it really quick, okay? This year, we learned about the differences between the Jewish denominations. We learned about how they perceive tradition, halacha, which is the Jewish law, gender, sexuality, Torah, Israel, and obviously God. We also learned that, in their own way, each denomination focuses on family, Jewish values, and the search for truth. That's why we decided to depict the 3 largest denominations using a rainbow to represent each denomination's view of truth. For orthodoxy, we separated the colors. Truth is absolute and can be found by following the halacha found in the Torah and Tanakh. We talked as a class about the words which we associate with orthodoxy, such as tradition, belief in God and the Torah or Tanakh, both, discipline, straight-laced, devotion, rituals, and family. For the conservative or Masorti movement, us, the colors are seen through the prism of modern society. Conservative rabbis believe that truth can be found in the Torah. However, religious observance is approached with the understanding that society changes with time, and so too must Judaism. We associate the conservative movement with words such as open-minded, relevant, compromising, welcoming, introspective, rational, and changing. The Reform movement sees truth as fluid, as seen here by the blended colors. They believe that each person must shape their own truth, and each person is free to choose their level of observance in their search for meaning. We associate the reform movement with words such as open interpretation, questioning, liberal, controversial, feminists, contemporary, and progressive. Although each denomination of Judaism is different from the next, we should focus more on the similarities in their own ways. All Jewish denominations value tradition. All denominations value learning and growth. And perhaps most importantly, all denominations value community and family. Perhaps knowing that family and community are at the center of all our beliefs can unite rather than divide Jews of all denominations. Thank you.
Thank you, ninth graders. I'm going to call up now Dor Mishori and the 10th grade class to make a short presentation on their course on comparative religions.
Sorry, just I don't have anything or videos or something. So, my name is Dor. I'm teaching the 10th grade. This year we learned about interfaith, about comparative religion. It started last year when me and Mel sat in the office and we felt we need to do something different. As you heard, our kids learning about Judaism since the, first grade or even kindergarten here in Aliyah school, and we wanted to present the real world that we have more than just one religion. And we looked at similarities and differences between the religions. It was very interesting. We talked about, do we really need to find similarities, or maybe the opposite, maybe to find differences and accept the differences instead of looking how we all the same. We should see the differences and accept them. We supposed to meet other Muslim teens and Christians. It didn't work out in the end, and I'm sorry for that. It was a great year, great kids, and we enjoyed a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Dor. And our 11th graders let their presentation outside speak for them. Their focus was on Israeli society and on Israel-American relations. And they, with Eti Segal as their teacher, they also invited a lot of different other Israelis who were here this year to present to them and have conversations with them. As well. So at this point, I'd just like to thank our amazing Tichon staff, all of them, and I'd like to just invite up each team of teachers who worked with our students. So our 7th grade team is Eddie Schulman, Mara Zellinger, and Rabbi Posen. Our 11th grade teacher, Eti Segal. And our 12th grade team is Rabbi David Kozak and Maura Yelvington. We also had a few teachers that were specifically here to work with our students for electives. Our song leading elective by Gabe Lawler, I don't think Gabe is here tonight. We had an amazing elective this semester that was called Hands-On Mitzvot. You saw a little presentation by them outside as well, Robin Shapiro and Sandy Axel. I also just want to take a moment to thank all of the other people that support our education programs in general and just help to make all of this happen every single week. I am so appreciative of our board of directors who are always supportive of the education that we are doing here. My boss, Fred Rothstein, and Cantor, who made a beautiful cameo appearance in our Tichon program this year. On the Purim spiel, we love having you involved in our Tichon program, and my right-hand co-worker, Joanne Bezotis, who makes Now we turn to our seniors, our 12th graders. Cantor actually came in at some point during the winter to meet our 12th graders, and he asked them to tell him a little bit about themselves, when they joined Neve Shalom and kind of where they were from, etc. And every 12th grader in the room at that moment had been a lifelong member, had gone to foundation school together even, and I think that kind of blew you away, right? This is a super highly engaged group of students. And last week the 12th graders actually baked all the desserts for tonight, so thank you. Baker as one of their teachers, more, and a professional chef as their other teachers. It's been a good year. And they were finished doing the baking, and Rabbi Posen had finished what she was doing with the 7th graders that she was working with, and they kind of she brought them out downstairs, and totally impromptu, which is probably the only way that really it would have worked. She asked the 12th graders to talk to the 7th graders and just share with them what's meaningful about staying in this high school program and being part of Neve Shalom all the way through their senior year. And the words that came out of you guys' mouth were absolutely amazing. I think they blew everybody away, including the 7th graders. And you talked about what it meant to be connected to each other. You talked about what it meant to be connected to this space. Some of you talked about what it meant to you to be madrichim in our program. And one of the things that I heard, I think it was Tali, that said, you know, we grow up with these kind of values and with this understanding of the world that we think is just kind of in the air, that we just think everybody has. And then she said, but then I was a madricha, a teaching aide in our kindergarten program, and realized we actually teach this to our kids in kindergarten. And it was just an incredible moment. I mean, I appreciated so much just kind of being a fly on the wall in that moment and hearing what each of you said. But I think you've all grown up here, really, and you've all grown up together, and it's been amazing to watch you grow and develop, and the way that your friendships and you each individually have blossomed here. So I'm really proud to present our 12th grade class. in addition to your reflections that you'll share with us in a minute, some of our 12th graders choose to leave something as a gift for the congregation. And I'd like to invite Mar to come up and talk a little bit about the project that you guys created.
Hi, everybody. Before I talk about the art, I want to say two things about you guys. So, my first year in Neve Shalom, I got the seniors today is my first class at 7th grade. I was new here, and there were like 36 students. So now we have 7 left. But I got to teach them almost every year. So I've been with them, grew up with them through this Aliyah program as well. And so I have a very special connection with each and every one of them, and I'm very proud of them. And I'm very proud of their art project because, like everything that this class does, I'm always very surprised what's going to happen. Every class I make a class, and then, a lesson plan, and if it happens, awesome. And if it doesn't, it happens in a different, completely way that blows my mind away. So this is one of those things that kind of just happened. We were like, let's YouTube this, and somehow they're going to present it. So I'm going to bring Tali to come and kind of explain the technique, or whatever she wants to talk about, but yeah.
Okay, so this is our art project. We made it using fluid acrylics, and we each took a cup full of a different combination of paints and put it on the board, and then we all held it and tilted it together to make it. And then it's kind of not visible from far away, but on it we have a quote that says, "Who is wise? One who learns from every person." And this applies to our class because we all learn from each other in weird ways. And then we move as a unit like our painting. So, yeah.
It's really beautiful, and it was cool to see. You guys sent me the video of what you had, of the technique that you wanted to use, and then you just took each of you a different color and brought it together. And that quote is lovely, and it applies to every single one of our Aliyah classes, and we'll find a great place to have it in the building as a gift from you. Thank you. I'd like to call up our first senior, Dahlia Meyer.
Hello. All right. When Moore and the rabbi first asked us to write our graduation speeches, I was pretty hesitant. My immediate response to them was I would not be participating in this activity, but after a couple weeks of arguing with them, they told me it was I wrote the speech or we couldn't go to sushi/frozen yogurt the next week. Actually, none of us wrote the speech that time, but I'm still giving it. All right. So one of the things our rabbi told me to think about when writing this speech were the lessons that Hebrew school has taught me. In the past 13 years of Hebrew school have kind of all blurred together in my mind. I remember the too familiar graham cracker snack at Sunday school and everyone chanting the Lone Ranger tune of Adon Olam during tefillah on Wednesday night so we could leave as quickly as possible. I couldn't think of any specific biblical teaching about Judaism because that's really not my expertise, but there is one lesson that I learned that stuck with me for the past decade and has had a pretty positive impact on my life. The lesson was taught in Mel's Kochavim class in first grade. A big chunk of that year was spent learning about Israel, and there was one class in which we boarded onto an imaginary LL jet and sipped on Dixie cups filled with milk and honey and got to go on a pretend trip to Israel. When we arrived at the Ben Gurion airport, also known as the hallway in the basement of Neve Shalom, we traveled to different places throughout Israel, and at each place we learned about its significance and other random Jewish stuff about it. And I remember one of our last stops was the Dead Sea. or in this case, it was the blue carpet in Mel's classroom. And I'm sure Mel taught us really amazing things about the Dead Sea, but there was one thing that really stuck with me. It was less of a fact, but more of a warning. As I sat on the blue carpet, relaxing at the Dead Sea, Mel's voice started to get serious as she told us that she got to go to the Dead Sea for the first time, and that there will come a time in our life when we too will go to the Dead Sea. And there is one thing that we should remember, that we should not shave our legs. And that's all. And that was the entire lesson. From then on, Mel's Dead Sea warning would echo in my head every single time the Dead Sea was mentioned. And about 10 years later, I in fact had the opportunity to go to the Dead Sea for the first time. And while the night before, I really wanted to shave my legs, Mel's words kept echoing in my head, and I decided not to. And the next day, as I listened to my friends complain about their shaven legs and how they were stinging in the salty water, I was able to relax and enjoy my time because I followed Mel's instructions. Some serious, some not, from Hebrew school that helped me to develop a foundation for my own Jewish identity and myself as a person. Attending Hebrew school every week not only strengthened my Jewish identity, but allowed me to hold on to it. I thought that after I was bat mitzvah, there was nothing left for me to accomplish in my Jewish life. After 7th grade, as I watched my class go from over 30 to under 10 in a span of a few months, I started to question why I still had to come to Hebrew school in the first place, and remember thinking, now what? And at the time, looking at the small picture, Tichon really seemed pointless. But now as I stand here in my last few moments as a Tichon student, I can see the big picture and the everlasting impact Tichon has had on me. Lessons from Tichon gave me an appreciation for Israel, which led me to spend a life-changing semester in Israel with the MHSI, which then sparked my interest in Israel and involvement in Israel advocacy and organizations such as AIPAC and Hands of Peace. I've spent the past 2 years of my life working with programs both in the Jewish and secular communities that pushed me to advance my relationship with Israel and find my place in the Jewish community. As I said earlier, my learning at Hebrew school began with a journey, a pretend flight on a pretend trip to Israel. At the time, Israel was a foreign land to me, but Aliyah made it familiar. That trip in first grade never really ended for me. It continued throughout the next 11 years as I traveled with my classmates, each on our own individual Jewish journeys. In August, I'll be boarding another plane, and this time it will be real, to start a new journey and chapter in my life at Tulane University. It's hard to imagine this next chapter in my life and where it will take me. But after my journey with Tichon and Aliyah, I'm confident it will be a good one, and I hope to continue growing as a Jew and an individual. And I'd like to thank my amazing teachers I've had over the past few years, and especially Moore and the Rabbi. You guys really rock, and it's going to be hard to say goodbye.
Every educator wonders sometimes what piece of wisdom we impart. That's going to stick with you forever. I'm so glad it's that one. Next, I'd like to call up Tali Emlin.
When asked to prepare our speeches for tonight, we were each given a sheet of paper with several guiding questions to help us in the writing process. One of the questions that really stuck out in my mind was something along the lines of, what have you learned in Hebrew school? This question kind of stumped me. Obviously, I learned to read and write in Hebrew, and this past year I had learned a lot about Israel and how it is portrayed in the American media. But I went through a bunch of lessons that I'd learned, but I didn't feel like it really captured what I had learned throughout my Neve Shalom experience. I felt like there was something I was missing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what that was. So I just put it in the back of my mind and then let it be. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I was working in the Sunday school class for the second graders, and we were listing off the 10 Commandments and talking about how do they apply in our lives and how can we treat people based on the 10 Commandments. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I get it now. The things that I've learned from Neva Shalom can't really be in list form because they're just ingrained in who I am. I've been here since foundation school. I went through the Aliyah program and the Tichon program. And although I really don't remember most of the lessons I've had, they're just so deeply ingrained in me that I can't forget them, and I'll carry them with me wherever I go. So I've learned things like tzedakah and just how to treat other people with care and respect, and I'm very grateful to Neva Shalom and the community for giving me that. So my Neva Shalom experience has both given me incredible friends and memories, as well as values, and has shaped who I am. And I was just talking to Dahlia this past Sunday about how weird it is that we won't be coming back here next year. I won't be able to catch up with my Hebrew school friends every Wednesday night, or bother more about who she's baking for. And it's weird to leave somewhere that I've gone to at least once a week for 16 years and have been a part of this congregation for 18, or almost 18. So I'm just so grateful for Neva Shalom, and I'll carry with me the lessons that I've learned here. Yeah, and thank you especially to Rabbi Kosak and Moore for this past year.
Tali, I remember your mom telling me at some point a number of years ago, I think it was when my youngest kid was graduating from foundation school, and I remember her saying to me in the parking lot that she kind of couldn't imagine foundation school existing without her kids in it. And I get that completely, and I just kind of want to reflect back to you that we kind of can't imagine Neve Shalom with you guys in it. You are so much part of the fabric of our community. Next, I'd like to call up Jennifer Kaplan.
Hello, okay. So about an hour ago, I learned about how we were given these prompts about what to write about, but I never got those prompts. So I just kind of wrote what I thought I should write about. So for me, Neve Shalom was one of the first places I truly felt at home. From singing and running around eating challah at Tot Shabbat, to getting dressed up for Purim in the foundation school, to playing hide and seek on high holidays, hiding in elevators, eating all the food at bar and bat mitzvahs, and finally partaking in our long Wednesday night chats, this place is full of some very special memories to me. A lot of the time, Neve Shalom and Wednesday night school was just another thing I had to do on my already very busy Wednesdays. But as we were looking back at pictures and reflecting on our years last week, I realized it was so much more than that. A lot of significant events in my life have been in Neve Shalom. This place and the people here have always been a second home to me throughout my life, and it is where I learned what it really means to be a part of a community. My Jewish identity has been a key element of defining who I am. I have been involved with so many things throughout my years, but it all rooted from Neve Shalom. The Jewish values I learned here at a young age, such as kahila, kavod, and tikkun olam, have stayed present with me throughout my entire life. I am looking forward to taking these values with me to the University of Oregon next year, and I fully expect that the values that were cultivated at Neve Shalom will continue to play a central role in my college life. I want to thank all my teachers and educators that I've had in Neve Shalom over the years. Thank you for all you do. I want to thank my friends who have stuck with me and that were always up for a good chat on Wednesday night. Although I will not be coming back for Tichon next year, I'm looking forward to coming back for the holidays and events. No matter where I go in life, I know that I will always have a home at Neve Shalom.
next speaker is Jonah Sachs.
I've been coming to Never Shalom for 17 years, and I've considered this building a pillar of my upbringing. Whether it was this building or the one before the remodel, I have come to this synagogue multiple times per week for my whole life. My story begins when I was two or three, attending foundation school. I vividly remember sitting in class, watching our pet frogs, and wondering when I would be getting the delicious pasta with cinnamon and sugar. Every day was a similar routine, although I would only get my desired lunch every once in a while. At foundation school, I was a mischievous child. I even bit Benji, who just happens not to be here tonight, but whatever. However, foundation school provided a strong path for me to follow in order to achieve my educational goals. I firmly believe that if not for foundation school, I would not be here today, still attending Tichon. After foundation school, my Jewish education continued with Sunday school. To be honest, I did not enjoy waking up early on every Sunday and being trekked all the way here. On top of that, I hated services. As a 10 or 11-year-old, going to services was never a preferred option. Instead, I would hide in the coat closet, hoping that I would not get caught in forcing services. While I openly displayed my dislike for services, there were many aspects of Sunday school that I sincerely enjoyed. For example, learning about Shabbat prayers in 6th grade really helped me get a grasp of what I needed to learn from my bar mitzvah. Additionally, at Sunday school, I was able to socialize with friends who I did not see during the week. While many kids hate being dragged to the educational aspect of Sunday school, all of them enjoy seeing their friends. Going to Sunday school was not only intended for me to learn, but to form lifelong friendships with other Jewish youths. Through both foundation school and weekly Sunday school, I was able to make friendships with multiple kids still attending Hebrew school, but also friends who do not continue to be here today. Coming into high school, I knew that going to Wednesday night school in Tichon would be a staple for not only my Jewish education, but my schooling in general. I would always look forward to cooking, using the industrial dishwasher, and seeing my friends. This year, learning with both Rabbi Kozak and more, I was able to understand character and who I want to be in the next 4 years of my life. I will constantly refer to the lessons that I learned through this past year, forming myself into the best Judaic person that I can be. As I enter the next stage of my life, I will always remember Never Shalom as a place where I became my true self. Hopefully I take my lessons learned at Neva and transfer them into my everyday life. Thank you.
Our next graduate wasn't as much part of this particular class, although she's graduating this year. Sometimes we have students who are more connected to a class other than their particular grade, and Anna Shapiro went through with a different grade, but she is equally graduating this year and has been an amazing member of our community in many ways.
So when I wrote my devar for my bat mitzvah, I eventually decided to write about the importance of community, both in my Jewish life and how that applied to my life outside of Neva. And I realized when I was writing this speech that I wanted to return to that theme. And in the past 4.5 years almost, I've added that it's not just about how there's a community here at Neva, but I've learned how I can become a part of that community and I can be an important contributing part of that community. And that really started back when I was a lot younger. The first time I led the prayer for peace at downstairs Minyan when I was probably 8 or 9. And then when I was a little bit older, I got to count in a Minyan, and I was an important part of somebody getting to say a prayer that really mattered to them. After my bat mitzvah, I got to read Torah to help all of my friends celebrate their own bar and bat mitzvahs. And then for the past 4 years, I've been a madricha in our K-6 program working with the 6th graders, and I've gotten to see all of them. Go from hating being in a microphone and being terrified of carrying a Torah and thinking that they'll drop it, to really being confident in their own abilities as a Jew and learning how to be a Jewish adult and take part in services and lead services as well. For the past few years, I've read Megillah at Purim, and I've led services on the High Holy Days, when for a lot of people that might be the only time they're at shul all year, so getting to be a part of that experience for them is really important to me.
I've also spent a lot of my time here setting a good example for a lot of the younger members of Neve Shalom and helping their parents have a little bit of time to talk to adults and not have their toddler tugging on them constantly. A few months ago, my 11th grade class got the opportunity also to go to a Shiva Minyan for a member here because there weren't enough people for that member to be able to say Mourner's Kaddish. And although it seems like that wouldn't be the most fun experience to have sprung upon you in the middle of Wednesday night school, I actually really enjoyed it because we got to hear about this amazing man who had really done a lot for his family and for his community, and we got to support someone here and his family. And so that was a really great experience for me. So I'm looking forward to, in August, taking all of these skills with me to Iowa, where I will be joining my new Jewish community at Grinnell College.
Thank you, Anna. Benji Spector is part of this class. We understand he couldn't be here tonight. I'd like to call up Miriam Karen for our next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to my bat mitzvah. Just kidding. I'm gonna keep it sweet and short, just like my Hebrew school experience. For those of you who don't know, I've taken a 5-year sabbatical from Hebrew school. This is my first year back, and I came back because earlier this year I was kind of like reflecting on my life. Sorry, I said like Gideon. I was reflecting on my life, and I realized I don't really spend much time with Jews besides my immediate family. And I felt like I'm not ostracized necessarily, but I'm never necessarily comfortable. And why not return to the place where it all began? Yes. So I'm just really grateful that I've been welcomed back into this community this year, and I've learned some really valuable lessons. I think what we learned about Israel and how to interact with people who don't agree with your particular beliefs are really valuable lessons that I'm going to really bring with me to college next year. I've always felt at home at Neva, probably because I've grown up here for the past 18 years with my fellow peers. And I know I've learned some amazing life lessons, and I look forward to continuing my learning about Judaism and what it means to be a Jew going forward into life. So thank you.
Thank you. And our last but not least speaker, Maud Elevitz.
The unit. That's what the Elevitz family calls itself. The unit. We've always been 3, and 3 we will always be. This year I've thought a lot about what the word family means. The true definition is a basic social unit consisting of parents and their children, considered as a group, whether dwelling together or not. As I read this, what resonated with me was the whether dwelling together or not. I don't live with my Camp Solomon Schechter friends, but they're my family. My USY Eastern Europe Israel pilgrimage friends live all over the country, but they still know me better than I know myself. I only see my Wednesday night school friends once a week, but we've raised each other. My best friends at Lake Oswego High School, go Lakers, live all over our little city, but they're the ones I can run to after a really hard day in our pressure cooker of a school. Speaking of my Laker family, I love them all so much, but sometimes they can be so dense. During my freshman year in the brick building, I really tried to explain Judaism many times, but in the end I gave up. I realized that the things that make the most sense to you can never actually be explained to everyone else. So I then resorted to calling Wednesday night school Jew school, and Schechter Jew camp, and my Shabbat dinners, high holiday services, and synagogue events Jew things. Most of them understood that this was a wall up against our friendship that they could never climb over. Coming to Hebrew school was honestly just easy for me. There was never a constant battle in my head like there was at school of, do I explain this or do I just let them struggle to attempt to not say anything insensitive? I could come here and just be Jewish. Not everyone's encyclopedia for anything that isn't Christianity. When I come to Neva, I feel understood. No one here needs me to explain why I can't hang out until 9 o'clock on a Friday night because I have to do Shabbat. So really, let's give a hand to this community, am I right? Thank you so much for blindly accepting others' traditions like normal people. I think one of my favorite aspects of this community is that the people here know all about my huge life events before I even get to tell them. I mean, I know my parents are paying for it and all, but I think the fact that my mom got over 100 more likes and comments on her Facebook post about my college decision should show you how involved this Jewish community really is. I love how informed everyone here is about the lives of people who aren't even included in their own family tree. Speaking of community, I have a little story for you. A few months ago, my mom made cookies for a bar mitzvah. I asked her, Mama, why don't you just make one type of cookie? You know that everyone else will be making cookies too. They are bound to have enough. She responded with, everyone deserves 2 types of cookies, even if there will be enough. Also, if I make 2 types, that means that someone else only has to make 1. She's so right. This community shares the work, including making cookies for other people's b'nai mitzvahs. Okay. I'm finally getting to the point. On the topic of family, specifically extended family, I don't really have many other living relatives besides my inner family. Now, many can say that's sad, but I realize as I've grown up that you can't control most of the happenings in the world, but you can control how you react to them. Growing up with very few extended relatives was definitely an experience, but I honestly feel that if I'd grown up with 2 full sets of grandparents, 4 aunts and uncles, 23 cousins, I would not have been able to create my own family. People say you can't choose family, but I definitely chose mine. The people who have raised me, meaning this community, are the ones I consider my family. Well, I guess not all of my family. I'm stuck with the 2 weirdos I live with for the rest of my life. Mommy and Daddy, thanks for holding me on the kitchen floor when I cried over pre-calculus last year. Thanks for driving me to and from every extracurricular activity and always having a snack in the car. Thanks for letting me tell you how much everyone annoys me when you really know it was just a bad day at school. Thanks for being my best friends, and thanks for putting up with, as the unit likes to call, Maudzilla at 7:45 in the morning. Oh yeah, and thanks for sending me to Hebrew school. Through the carpooling, bat mitzvah tutoring, bat mitzvah stressing, bat mitzvah planning, some more stressing, and I guess a little bit of money, you never lost sight of what was important, allowing me to create my own Jewish identity and raising me in a community that I know will always be my family, whether dwelling together or not.
We're going to save our huge applause for the 12th grade class for a few minutes from now when you guys all get up, but first I'd like to call up Rabbi Kozak to present to you.
So there's this Hebrew phrase, acharon chaviv, sort of means last but not least. And I realized tonight, when Mel stole my comments about dessert, that it's actually sort of a consolation phrase, last but not least, so you won't feel so bad. But I want to make a bigger deal about that a little bit, because really, this group on its last class wanted to make dessert for you. And I think that says a tremendous amount about who they are. Yes, they like running industrial dishwashers. You can come over to my house, we'll install one, you can do the dishes there. But it also was just that love of community and of being with one another and really of being tight friends. And it's been a pleasure to get to experience your friendship this past year. So Acharon Haviv, since that was stolen from me, that full dessert comment, I have to give a special todah to you, Mel, for all that you do. I, speaking personally, am very proud of our educational capacities and classes and teachers and morale and the experience that a Jewish child can have from foundation schools up to the very end. So thank you for what you do for us. I also want to thank Moore, my fellow teacher. And hang out, to cook with you, to teach with you. This week is Parshat Naso, and contained within this week's Parsha is the world's oldest recorded blessing. You probably know it because you probably received it when you became B'nai Mitzvah here, the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. And I think that everyone probably has at least heard the words. Some of the people in this room, even on Friday nights, have had their parents recite it to them. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisad Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. I want to unpack that prayer a little bit and offer it to you as a final gift from here, because the other meaning of Acharon Chaviv is that the last things are the most dear. And on this day, as you prepare to say goodbye to your years as students here, there's something precious and sweet and a little bit lonesome as well, all mixed together in there. So Yivarechecha v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and protect you or watch over you. And that notion of a blessing, berech, the same word from ni, is a transfer of energy from one person to another. You can't give someone a blessing without opening your heart a little bit, and you can't receive it without also having a little bit of openness to it. The halakha around this blessing says just that we're active in giving and receiving blessings. So also this notion of God protecting you. And I'd like to think, as some of you shared tonight, that your time here has helped you to know who you are, which is one of the deepest forms of protection we can have. I'd also like to think that your years at Neve Shalom have provided you the protection of community and identity in a world in which too many people are alone and don't have the friendships and the connections that you do from being here. And finally, that notion of being protected or watched over, I hope that each of you is walking out of here with the strength of faith. And I don't mean some saccharine faith that you don't necessarily believe in or that you began to doubt when you were 13, but I mean the sort of faith that you still can believe in with your full, growing adult minds. The sort of faith that lets you know that there are values, such as you discussed in your speeches, that can sustain you. And each of those three things, I think, of knowing who you are, of knowing you have a community, and that you have faith to help you endure what life will bring you in this coming year, what resonate for me in the first line of this blessing. The second line is fascinating. May God's face shine upon you. May you be graced. And this notion of chen means of getting more than you imagine, more than you deserve even. And I think there is contained in that first part a notion of transcendence, right? That there is something more than just this world. And that every so often in our lives we get to touch it, and we get to be reminded that we're part of something so much vaster, and that we still each have our role in it. But what does that mean, that second part, to be graced with something, to that gift of chen? I think it, in part, is reminding you of the blessings of gratitude. And I just saw on the church, as you go down Capitol Highway, turn on 10, a church had a saying that said, a gratitude, if you can't be grateful for what you've received, then be grateful for what you escaped. And I liked that, right? We sometimes we think we might want more, but boy, all you have to do is look at the world and how the conditions are for so many people, and you can have a sense of how much each of you have been given. And none of us know what your tomorrows will look like, or how high you will soar, or what will become of you. But I know already that you each have received so many wonderful blessings, and I hope that as you go through your life, that you will be able to nurture that sense of gratitude and realize what I have and what I escaped. And isn't that amazing? And isn't it enough? The final part of this ancient blessing, God, may God raise up God's face to you and grant you peace. But peace or shalom, I think you also know after your many years here, shares the same root and the same essence as shlemut, or completeness. So what does it mean to wish someone that they should be a complete person as you head out into this next phase of your life? I think there are a lot of aspects to that. Certainly success is part of shlemut. And I hope that each of you, as you find your way and move on to the next phases of your life, will find healthy measures of success, where you get to use your gifts and your skills and your capacity to work hard to achieve things that matter to you. I think in a setting like this, in a religious institution, shlemut also has to mean a sense of possessing morality. And we have seen in our country so many people with material success or power stumble and fall because they did not have the completeness of a moral core, of realizing that it's not just about what we achieve, but how we go about doing it. And there will always be so many blandishments in the world that will try to tempt you away from doing the right and the good. And I have faith that this place and its lessons and the teachers and the relationships that you each have experienced will allow you to pick the right thing even when other forces inspire you to take the easy, the expeditious, the self-involved answer. Finally, I would like to think that one of the most important aspects of shlemut is that of love and of friendship. And you've demonstrated to each other throughout your many years here a tremendous sense of friendship and care for one another. After all, you're still here, out of a class of 30 plus, not that many years ago. Love and friendship takes courage. And the older we get, the more courage it takes. I think friendship, when we're young, comes very easily. And that as we grow, we become more complex, our lives become more complex, and finding a way to really connect with people in an open-hearted manner becomes strangely more of a challenge, not less, even though we have more to bring to the table. So I wish for you and your lives going forth tremendous capacities of love and friendship for, yes, all of us, the people you already know, but also for the new people who you are yet to meet and who will be able to impact you for the better. A final thought. The first part of this final word is so bizarre. Yisa Adonai panav elecha. May God raise up God's face to you. I like the comedian John Carlin, and he had a really great routine about how God's not up there, there's no up, what do you mean? It's a great atheist rant, if some of you know that Carlin routine. But what's amazing about this blessing is that God's not up in that last line, you are. God is raising God's face up to you. And what on earth could that possibly mean? I'd like to think it means that if you actually are able to achieve all the other parts of the blessing and live a life of shlemut and be moral and be successful and do your best and build relationships and spread love, you will have lived up to your God-given potential. And how could God do anything else but look up to people who achieve that? We're all very proud of you, and as you go forth out into the world and say goodbye to this phase, we will always be here, but we also hope that as you go out there, you bring a little bit of this place with you, and in that way make the world better and kinder and a little more just. Go with peace. Mazel tov.
So I'd like to call up our senior class, and I'd like to call up Cantor Tichon and Rabbi Posen so that we can bless you with the priestly blessing that Rabbi Kozak just so beautifully explained. Seniors, come on up.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
May Adonai keep you and bless you.
יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה.
May God smile upon you and be gracious to you.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך ויעשה לך שלום.
May God be with you and face upon you peace. Amen.
In a minute, we'll give you some gifts. We have, we're giving you candles with a candle holder that has a picture of Portland and a reminder of how much we love you, and we'll be thinking of you every Shabbat, your family and your community at Neve Shalom, and we hope you'll remember us and the place that you know you always have here. We have a tradition of passing the torch to our incoming 12th grade class, and just as Anna stayed with her 11th grade class, even though she's a graduating senior, we actually had a few students who were 11th graders this year, but that spent the year with you guys as 12th graders, and those are Oliver Twain and Betty Silverberg and Eli Malloy. And we have a whole new program that Rabbi Kozak and I have been working on for the incoming 12th graders. So I'd like to invite up our 11th grade class, and so that our 12th graders can pass the proverbial torch to you. Well done. So we present you with our incoming senior class of next year, and we look forward to working with you guys as seniors next year, and to all of you to continue with us. So we are going to give you guys your gifts, and then we'll have a couple of All right, a big round of applause for our amazing senior class. So we're going to ask our seniors to stay up here and take a couple pictures with our rabbis and cantor. We thank you all very, very much for coming this evening and for celebrating a wonderful